Welcome back to Tonight in Haddonfield and Beyond. This is hour one, the Haddonfield hour. We got some really creative, fun topics for you this evening. I'm joined this week by my partners in crime, Johnny and Randy. Randy, how you doing?
Not too bad. Just been one of those days. We got a new system at work, and they just didn't do a good enough job testing it. So me being here is my way of unwinding and just kind of taking that bad crap and getting rid of it right now. So I'm just ready to have some fun.
So the X-Wing's hyperdrive is malfunctioning, is what I'm hearing.
Pretty much.
Uh, Johnny, what's going on, man?
Oh, not a heck of a lot of anything.
Um, All right. Well, we got some topics to get into. Matt, can you set, or pardon me, Matt, Randy, can you send Matt a link? He's messaging me, and I can't do all these things at once. Um, to the YouTube stream. Apparently, he needs. I don't know. Just say Sean said you needed this. What's going on, Jay? Long time no talk, buddy. I wanted to spend some time today talking about the Halloween TV series. We got a ton of Halloween content coming up. I got to tell you, I've spent a significant amount of time over the last couple of weeks working on stuff that we have coming up. Various different contributors involved with it. Here's a brief preview of what's to come. Uh, and not even everything is on there. For example, Johnny, Kieran, and I are going to do Halloween Resurrection. It's not on there, and that's also one that might end up being soon, but it also might end up being in November at some point. So, to me, Halloween season is September to November, not just October. But a lot coming up. Brayton Timmons had something really fun drop today that I'm not going to cover on tonight's live stream, but I am going to do a very short video on and put it on the channel tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Our Rob Zombies Halloween 2 editorial is going to come up. I'm hoping this week. This week is crazy. We have a wedding to go to this weekend. I have work. It's just hard. I wanted it out at the end of last week, but like there's so many different contributors to it. Randy's involved in it, Matt's involved in it, Braden Timmons is involved in it, Mike Bish is involved in it. So it started off as this little thing that has grown into this much bigger thing. And you know what? Just doing a lot of the research about the movie. Um, I kind of have, I don't have a different feeling about the movie, but I have a little bit of a different feeling about um, Rob Zombie and the shit that he had to go through with that movie, which I never thought I'd say those words. Um, we do want to answer the chat as much as we have, or what as much as we can. Pardon me. Jay says, "Bitch, you must talk about Halloween stocks 1 and 2. They are by far the best fan film and may even be better than the majority of the sequels." I have not. So I heard about the second one coming out. Never heard of the first one. Definitely want to find time for it. Really love what Braden Timmons is doing with The Last Nightmare, though. Supported that. Supporting Halloween Aftermath. We have James Grimm set to come on. We have some of the casting crew set to come on for that. So yeah. Sean, did you sit shape? No, beard's still here. It's just trimmed. Trimmed. Trying to clean up a bit. We have a wedding to go to this week, and I still haven't gotten to where I need to get for it. Frank says, "Hope your health is better. It is a battle every day, but I appreciate the thoughts." Um, Jay says, "Trust me, it's better than anything you've seen, movie quality wise. They're both about 15 minutes. I need to look into that then. It's YouTube content, so it's fair use. Maybe I'll do a reaction to it. But I definitely trust Jay's judgment in quality for sure. Uh, let's dive into it, guys. We got a lot to get to here. I want to start off, even though our order is listed as one thing. I want to start off with Friday the 13th, and then we will move on to the Halloween TV series. So, thanks, man. Hit me up on Messenger with them. So, Friday the 13th has a ton of films, a lot of bad, if you ask me, and not very good. Uh, most very campy. I'm a fan of them. I spent a good chunk of my summer watching them with the wife and our oldest son, and it's probably the best thing we did this summer. And definitely made some memories with it. Got through most of them. Have one more to get through, but I see a lot of different opinions on what people consider the best Friday the 13th film. I see a lot of people that love 4. I see a lot of people that love 6. A lot of people love 2, some love 3. The original doesn't seem to get the love that I think it deserves just because Jason's not a focal point in it. Um, so, Johnny, I know you're a bigger Friday guy than a Halloween guy. I'm going to let you bat lead off. What is your favorite Friday film and why?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I mean, I think you hit the nail talking about the ones that are popular, but for me, my favorite has always been 6, that Jason Lives. Um, I don't know why. It's just there's something about it that just they finally killed him and he comes back. It just there's just something about it that it just embraced what it was. It encapsulated the slasher genre for me in that one film, and the performances within it are great. Tommy, just everybody in it, the story, you know, um, just everything about it with Tommy's struggles in the beginning and Jason coming back and everything starting over. It was always my favorite. It's the one I liked the most personally. It's, in my opinion, it's the best.
Randy, how about you? What do you have as your best Friday film and why?
See, I struggle with this one because I do like all of them relatively equally to some degree. If I mean, I can't disagree with Johnny in terms of like just how good 6 is. It probably is by far um, one of the best in the series. Next to the original. The original obviously set it off, and that's to me that was a masterclass in terms of just kind of keeping you in the dark of like who done it, and it was more kind of like the murder mystery sort of thing on top of being a slasher. But for me, I struggled because there was 2 that kind of came to mind. Obviously 2009. Well, I really enjoyed that more or less because of Derek Mears' portrayal of Jason. I liked the idea of having a hulking, imposing, fast Jason who could think and set traps. And there was just something about that that really spoke to me and resonated well with me. But honestly, the one that I find myself watching the most, and I think part of it has to do with just like picking out little details and little things that I never noticed before, and upon each we're watching, is actually 5. And a lot of the reason for that is because I like a lot of the nuanced character development here and there. I like how they led into heavily into like PTSD with Tommy after having to deal with Jason and 4, and just the idea of watching, the guy basically be a fake Jason, but watching some of his visual cues about him when he snaps when he sees his kid dead and things like that. Like there's just these little things that they added to the film that really just kind of every time I go back and watch it, I find something different that I kind of missed before, that's probably why it's like one of my favorites, just because of that alone. It's just and I know it's not everybody's favorite. I know that's one of the reasons why 6 got made is because people didn't like it, but it is what it is. It's, we like what we like.
So I like 5 too, the copycat killer. It's not my favorite, but I like it. And honestly, I find Tommy, look, I know most people prefer Tom Matthews as um Tommy Jarvis. Um I don't. You know, I like what the Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone 2 did with them. Those are fantastic films. If you haven't seen them and you're a Friday film fan and you've been sitting here waiting to watch Friday movies, go watch those movies. They're better than some of the actual Friday movies. And I do mean on a production quality level too. Um, the guy, and I don't even know his name, but the fella who played Tommy Jarvis in Five, to me, I found to be more intriguing because that was a guy that was dealing with PTSD, the effects of what happened in Four. It just felt more real to me. That being said, some of the shit that goes down in Five, you can't help but laugh. For me personally, though, I'm going with 2009. John Shepard. Thanks, Joel. Um, 2009. Look, there's a reason we're doing a supernatural show on the channel. Episodes are going to start to air next week, I believe. So we're going to bring in a special guest here in a couple minutes too to join us for a couple of topics. I wasn't aware this was happening, but we'll get to him in a second. But 2009 is for me the best made Friday the 13th movie. It's not campy. It feels like Jason's a real threat. Jared Padalecki, I'll go ahead and say it, is the best lead a Friday the 13th movie has had. Although it's hard to take off my supernatural fan hat. There's definitely some bias there. Um, I love 2009. I haven't seen it in a couple years now. When my oldest guy comes down in October, that's the one we have not watched together yet. So that's on the to-do list. But I just love how real it feels. I love the cinematography in it. I love the camp cottage area they go to stay at. It feels a little bit like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 at times. Not as gory as that movie, but you know, it's insane to think they made that movie and couldn't find a way to make more movies off of that movie, and that's the last movie that stands. It just blows my mind. But 2009 is my favorite. Joining us now, special guest, sponsor on the channel, Mr. Matticus Whitfield. Dude, you're a Friday guy. Give it to us. Give us your favorite Friday movie and why.
Um, the best made, I had to agree with you, was 2009. But I'm different. My favorite seven. I'm like, the number five was okay to me. I thought some of the storyline was good. I just wasn't a fan of Jason being somebody else. It just didn't. And I guess the quality of the movie wasn't that good. Like I said, some of the storyline, but seven's my favorite, and six is a close on my Friday scale.
So I gotta ask, man, why seven? I like seven. I like the
It
whole
was
Jason
different.
versus the psychic, but I can tell you right now, my spouse hates it.
Who hated it?
Jade literally says "fuck Matilda."
Oh my god! No, it was cool because Jason had finally really met his match, and as far as like somebody who could compete with him, somebody that could hurt him. And you didn't see that before. Tommy to a degree, but Tina um uh was somebody who could actually challenge Jason. And who loves seeing Terry Kaiser get killed? Bernie. That I think that's still probably one of my favorite kills of all time from the Friday movies.
And the fact that you have a crush on Tina has nothing to do with why you like Seven so much either.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. See.
That's like my obsession. My two obsessions of Daniel Harris and the fact that Karen did not get killed in Halloween.
Oh, for the love of God, she's dead. She's dead.
Hey, you told me earlier today in that message she isn't.
That is not what I told you in that message. Oh my God, Matt and I were having some fun when I got off work, and we were talking about the next Halloween movie is actually going to be Halloween Ends Again. And it turns out Karen faked her death and didn't die and is mad at Allison and Laurie for just moving past her. That'll get the fan base back.
Let's get on that script now. Let's get a treatment going.
What's stopping you, Matt?
Yeah, I ain't got nothing to do right now.
Wow. So let us know what your favorite Friday the 13th movie is. I'll give Friday this. Look, you ask people for Nightmare on Elm Street, I find one comes up more, and I don't mean the first movie, but I feel like Dream Warriors gets said a lot as the favorite most of the time. You ask people for Halloween, it's almost always Halloween 78. It's not for me. Wear my Halloween 4 fanboy hat. And then Johnny, who is going to do the watch party to his favorite Halloween Resurrection. But
Look at that look. Look at you should have seen how his face completely changed. His eyes were like,
if you could
what
do
you
the
talking about,
laser
Willis?
eye thing, that's what I was getting right there. Hang on. Jay says, "Did you see David Gordon Green just did an interview? Says he messed up on Ends. It was a great movie. Just should have been Michael the whole time, possibly being a child being influenced." Yeah, well, they went the fan fiction route on it, right? Like one of them would take a pass, they'd hand it over to the next person, hand it over to the next person, hand it over to the next person, and then the other part is Jamie Lee Curtis caused them a lot of shit. Like she full on owned that, they proposed certain things and she squashed them and wasn't going to do them. She did the Hulk Hogan. That's not going to work for me, brother. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show too. But yeah, there was all sorts of things that could have went different with that movie. That is not a movie that is slated in our watch party schedule from now through November because we're going to do a few non-Halloween movies as well. But we will do a Halloween Ends watch party the further we get into things here for sure. I do want to really quickly touch on some details about a physical media release and a movie that I just have to highly recommend to everybody if they haven't seen it yet. And that is Hush. Mike Flanagan's Hush. It's basically his take on Halloween if he had done a Halloween movie. If you don't know, he did work on a Halloween script for a bit. Ultimately, really couldn't get it done and backed out of it. But like, I'm such a nitpicky guy when it comes to physical media nowadays because you can get everything digital. Obviously, if you can get physical media, I definitely recommend it. But like, this is loaded. This is one of those circumstances. First of all, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you need to. It's an excellent movie. It's incredibly well made. It's a unique take, shot very well. But then again, I'm a Flanagan fanboy. I love most of what he does. Didn't like the Midnight Club though. The bonus features here. I'm about to lose access to my laptop, so I can get through this part quickly. Disc 1 is the 4K UHD original version. New Shush Cut audio mix. New 2024 4K restoration, supervised and approved by Mike Flanagan. Audio commentary with Flanagan, actor, co-writer, and wife Kate Segal, actors Samantha Sloan, John Gallagher Jr., and Michael Trucco. Disc 2 includes the 4K restoration of the black and white Shush Cut, which is how Flanagan said the movie's really meant to be seen. So I am looking forward to that. This is one I'm going to pick up. It takes a lot for me to spend money on physical media because money doesn't grow on trees. This is definitely one that I'm getting. Let's get past disc 3, which basically is a lot of what you see in disc 2. What am I missing here? Do you guys see what's different between 2 and 3? There's a little more, I suppose. I guess the no, that's the audio commentary's on there.
It looks like it's more audio commentary with more people, I guess.
Yes, that is the one that's on there. Sorry, I was getting lost. And then the special features disc. Feature length picture in picture video commentary with Flanagan, Seagal, Samantha Sloan, John Gallagher Jr., and Michael Trucco. So if I'm understanding this right, we're going to see them providing the audio commentary visually while seeing the movie play, which is rare. You usually don't see that. An interview with a bunch of the cast, producer Trevor Macy, interview with the composers, the Newton brothers, interview with the director of photography, James Neist. Let me tell you, the cinematography in this movie is fantastic. If you're a Halloween fan that wants a Halloweenish movie that's not Halloween, get Hush, because they do a take on it that's just fantastic. And I really love it. This is a must get. Obviously, that is a expensive price for some physical media. That being said, if you can get the movie digitally, if you don't want the extras, you should see the movie if you haven't seen the movie yet. It really is a nice ad. Johnny, you all right there?
Yes. Yes.
All right. You seemed like you were oohing and ahhing over something.
I am, but unless you're a Doctor Who fan, you wouldn't care.
Okay. I like Matt Smith. Let's move to
That's
Halloween.
Like 6 doctors ago at this point. Get with the times.
Let's move to Halloween here. Halloween, 3 things we want to see from the TV series. We'll go around in a circle one at a time. I don't know if Matt had time to prepare for this, so we're going to do this kind of in a star formation and go from me to Randy to Johnny to Matt. So we'll give Matt time to come up with his. For me, the most important thing about getting the Halloween TV series off the ground. Also, I feel like this is a unique perspective because you got Matt and I who are like diehards, and you got Randy and Johnny who are more like the casual Halloween fan. So I don't think necessarily everything we all want lines up, which provides a bit of a unique perspective. For me, I got like a joint number one. No Laurie Strode. Move on for Laurie Strode, for God's sakes. I don't want to hear about Jamie Lee Curtis having any involvement in this, even behind the scenes. I don't want someone else playing Laurie Strode. Introduce us to a new, interesting protagonist, preferably multiple of them, that grab your attention. Because with a TV series, you are going to need characters that we care about, or it just becomes Friday the 13th, where you're watching Jason kill a bunch of nobodies. That's the first thing I want. When I think Halloween's better movies, obviously Laurie's a big part of 78. For me, 2, 4, 5, 6, you really get into Loomis, and he has help from like Meeker's a beloved character. Tommy Doyle in 6 is a beloved character. Rachel Carruthers in 4. We won't talk about what happens to her in 5. Good, likable protagonists are an important thing to delivering a good movie and or a series. A series which is probably going to be 8 to 10 episodes long. You're going to need to fill probably 45 minutes to an hour an episode. You better have likable characters or your series is going to sink. So for me, it's all about the protagonist. Michael's going to do his thing, regardless of how you look at it. Whatever take we get on Michael, whether it's more of a Halloween 4 Terminator style Michael, more of a Halloween 1978 Michael, which is what I do think they're going to go for. A little less of the David Gordon Green Michael, which is that same Michael, but maybe a little bit overpowered at times. I don't think they'll go the zombie route. Michael's Michael. You're going to get some sort of incarnation of Michael that more than likely you like, that isn't terrible. But it's the rest of it that needs to carry the show. So for me, it's protagonist. Brandy, how about you? What do you got at number 1?
For number 1, I mean, for me, it's going to be, I guess the best way to describe it is with the story playing the long game. I want the slow burn for the story. I want a story where, like you said, we need characters that we like. Well, I don't want to sit there and watch them die off one at a time or every episode. I want to feel like I'm getting to know the characters. So I want that slow burn. I want that ability to tell a story. And then when the time is right, and when the time is at that point where you're just fully invested in a character, that's when something could potentially happen. And unfortunately, because what we see with a lot of movies, because it's, with a slasher movie, it's, you don't get a whole lot of that. Even if it's a couple movies, if some characters in a couple movies, sometimes you don't get a lot of development. With a TV series, that's what I expect. I expect to actually feel something when one of these characters dies, that they've been building up for episodes. So that's, to me, that's kind of the most important thing I want, is just that ultimate slow burn where we truly do get attached to these characters.
I think that's important. Jay says, so he heard from a buddy of his who told me the stuff that he informed me of the last time that was accurate, like a week before it got out to like 3C Films and some of the other places, that they want the show out next year and possibly a movie after. Well, they were pretty upfront with saying they wanted to do a show that leads into the movie. And to recap the rumor that was covered on our past show, is essentially they talked about picking up with Michael Myers in prison, but I also took that, is it prison or is it back in Smith Grove? It could work both ways, but specifically, the rumor was a maximum prison facility. He would get out, and basically, you wouldn't get Michael in the mask until the very end. Well, the only way that works for me is if you have what we just talked about, interesting protagonists. You need stuff going around, Smith Grove essentially, or even back in Haddonfield. You need characters. If he's getting out in the last episode or the second last episode to go cause havoc, then you need to spend some time with characters leading up to that, or he's just killing cannon fodder. The movie thing they've talked about, they want it to build into a movie. The timeline, Jay, let me know if it's okay if I put out the actress that you told me might be involved from your source. Um, I know other places have reported on it since, but I don't want to recap it on a live stream if you're not comfortable with that being put out there. Um, but for me, when you talk timeline for that stuff, and we'll get to Johnny's take in a second here. Look, 2025 is really early, guys. There's already a lot coming out next year. It is already September. Now, I do expect that we are going to get an announcement in the month of October about significant behind the scenes stuff that is going on with this project. Here's the caveat: there's so many times where announcements are coming with Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, and everything fucking falls apart. Just go read Taking Shape 1 and 2. You need no more further proof than that. So I would say if you do not get an announcement in October, that there is 0% chance that anything is out in 2025. And as I've said at nauseum on this channel, I don't want them to rush it. Don't get me wrong, I'll be on board if they do it for 2025. They've been working on this thing for a while now. The deal was done almost a year ago. From what I understood, they had trouble finding a showrunner at first. They had some picks that got picked up by other people. I don't know who their showrunner is at the moment, but I do know that I do know that there's creatives in place. I know we talked about a few of them that might be involved. One of them was debunked by another channel. But I don't know. 2025 is really rushed. I'd rather them take their time, put the thing out in 2026, and then have, like, to me, if your TV show is coming out in 2026 and you intend to follow that up with a movie, why not put it out in 2026, only have a 2-year wait, and follow it up with the 50th anniversary of the first movie? That to me seems the smarter way to go. Bad things happen with Halloween projects when you rush them. Very, very bad things, like Halloween Resurrection, which tried to be rushed. Obviously, it wasn't in the end, but Halloween 5. Halloween Ends wasn't really rushed, but like there's just a bad history of Halloween movies being rushed and bad results coming from it. And the last thing I want is any more bad results. I want to watch a TV show that's high quality. I don't want, what happened with I Know What You Did Last Summer or some of the other horror TV shows that have come out and have been utter busts. You definitely don't want that to happen, especially if you want it to lead into a cinematic movie. Um, then I would suggest that you need to do it well. We'll see where that leads. Jay, I had mentioned if I had asked if I could name the actress that your source said might be involved in this. I know some other people put it out there online. I didn't want to say it on stream if you weren't okay with it. In the meantime, Johnny, what's the first thing you need from a Halloween TV series?
For me, the first thing that I need is I need originality of story. I don't just want this is what the Halloween series looks like on TV. And it just does the same story we've already got in the films, only in a television format. I don't want that. I don't want anything close to that. I want something original. Now, I know you're pretty much geo-locked in that, you're not going to take Halloween out of Haddonfield. That's not going to happen. But ideally, I need something new, something original, new characters, not, like you said, I don't want Laurie anywhere near this. Of characters we have in the franchise, if you can cast it properly and well, the only one I'd be okay with seeing is Dr. Loomis because he's so far removed from his last appearance in cinema that you could, as an original character, obviously the flashbacks that we had in the Green movies notwithstanding, but from an original Donald Pleasance performance, we're almost 3 decades removed from that. So he is a character that I could see you incorporating this, and he is important in the mythos. That having him around and not Laurie, I think, makes more sense than having Laurie around, who has sort of become a cloud of chaos around the Halloween franchise and fandom. So, whereas Loomis is pretty much universally well regarded. So I think he's the character that if you're going to bring someone from the film, obviously outside of Michael, but outside of that, he's the only one, and I want an original story, whether that's, him escaping in a year in between what we've seen, or if you're just going to be like, yeah, the movie's never happened except the first one, and this is, a new retcon of all of that, which, let's be honest, I wouldn't exactly be surprised at that. But yeah, I just
Oh,
need originality.
there's definitely some sort of retcon coming.
There has to.
They're going back to like they've already confirmed it is not a continuation of Halloween Ends. It's not continuing the David Gordon Green thing in some way, shape, or form. They're going back to the original movie. Now that doesn't mean they're retelling the original movie.
No.
I believe that they're doing events that take place after that movie in some way, shape, or form, and it doesn't necessarily mean the exact events that we see in the 78 film are what happened, but rather something close to it. And I do know not Donald Pleasant, sorry, Dr. Loomis is one character that they've been toying around with, at least from the people we've talked to. There seemed to be a divide there for a bit, whether it was a good idea or not to, sorry, my dog is so my dog is not in great shape right now, so he's looking for some attention. It's do they or don't they? Look, you do Loomis and you do him bad, you get Michael or Malcolm McDowell, part 2%, sell the sizzle, not the steak, the Weird Al interview, all that stuff. I would say we are long overdue for a different take on Dr. Loomis that people actually appreciate. So I'm right there with you, man. I don't know if that's the route they're going down. Also, Jay in the chat said Sydney. We mentioned that there might be a specific actress involved in this series. The actress that we are referring to is Sydney Sweeney, who is definitely taking off in the last year or two, and would be appealing to a lot of people to be in the series for sure. Matt, what's one thing they got to do for you?
Oh, I was just like you, right off the bat. No fucking Laurie Strode at all. Nowhere near this. My ideal timeline would be 63 to 80. I think you can take enough of stories, be it in Smith's Grove. Maybe there was more times Michael tried to get out and didn't get out that never been told. His court case never been told. Um, was he charged with the murders of um, oh god, Linda and the other Bob and all them? What happened with that? I mean, there's so many angles they could go out, but I think you need Pleasance, some form of a Donald Pleasance in this to make it. You don't need the center of the story around Michael or Donald Pleasance, or I mean, you just need to find a different protagonist, like you said. But yeah, right off the bat, no Laurie Strode. She can executive produce all she wants, but that's as far as get her name just to get her little name, get her little dough. She can be executive producer. That's it.
No, thank you. Fuck that. No way. I'm sorry. Just remove yourself completely from Jamie Lee Curtis at this point. She really helped out the Borderlands movie. That went real well.
Yeah.
Let's not lay that at her feet.
Well, I don't know. I heard some things. I wouldn't put it past her either. Not that it's.
I've seen the
primarily her
Minecraft
fault.
trailer. I'm blaming Jack Black.
My kid loves the Minecraft trailer. So.
Well, he's a kid. Of course he does.
Oh, trust me, the adult in me is dreading having to go see that movie, but I'm excited for him. But Jay had mentioned in the chat he believes it is around centered around Loomis. That's one of the things I was told, that they basically were working on two different things. One that was heavily Loomis, and one where Loomis would just be briefly referenced, much like in the David Gordon Green trilogy. I hope they go the Loomis route, but it's such a vital casting, right? Like, to me, you need
have to nail it.
You can't just be like, I'm hiring this guy, a Loomis lookalike actor. I've seen people been like, why don't they use the guy from Halloween Kills? Well,
because
that's
Loomis
that
needs
guy
to act.
not an actor.
Training.
To me, you need someone that can definitely honor Donald Pleasance, but people aren't going to like this next thing, that can make the role his own. You need someone that brings something new to the role, for sure. Something interesting. For me, my second thing is quite simple. Multiple times in Halloween movies, there has been pitches on doing a detective and police stories. H2O had a whole detective arc that was cut out of it. I like the idea. I'm not asking for it to be the quality of Seven, because that is just probably not going to happen. I think your expectations are too high. But give me a Seven-ish story where if Michael gets out and about, you are following a couple of detectives, then there's an investigation going on, and it's not just like a subplot, that is a significant part of the story, and you get some mystery in there. It's one of the reasons why I love the Batman that came out. Like, the detective side of it is fantastic. I think if you can do that, that's great. But again, that goes back to my first point. You need to have interesting protagonists that you like to get people involved. Randy?
So it's like it's wrestling with some of the stuff, but knowing that there's a really high probability that we're going to get to see Loomis in some way, shape, or form. If we're doing that, and what I need to see is, I want to see the start of the descent into madness. That basically we seen him just be obsessed over all the films, but I want to see the cracks. I want to see them forming. I want to see that type. That's the type of, like you said, the character. Whoever they choose would have to make the role his own. So and I'm hoping that in doing so, to do that is to bring us aside to the character that we've never really been privy to, and that's the mental part of it, the whole idea of just seeing him get picked apart little by little, uh, that obsession growing versus just him showing up saying, "You're all in danger. We need to kill Michael." I mean, it's all it's ever really been half the time. Not saying that was bad. I'm just saying that always wanted more. I always wanted to see more in that. And with a TV series, there we can see the little tanks coming in and starting to just he's getting whittled down and whittled away, and there can be these really intense moments where you can see him ready to snap, but he pulls himself back. And that's kind of what I want to see out of this character, and that's definitely something that I kind of want. I want to see this. I want to see that descent.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I like Halloween 4 and one of the more redeeming qualities of Halloween 5 is Loomis just fucking loses it. Right? Like he, he literally holds Jamie out and uses her as bait and is like, Michael, come and get her. And it's, watching that descent into madness and unhealthy obsession, I think is important. But I also think diving back into I think you need to give Loomis some stakes. I think you need to have Loomis have a family. I think whether it's family or friends, Loomis needs some stakes if you're going that route. Again, though, you have to nail the casting. If you butcher that casting, toast right out of the gate. Johnny, what's number 2 for you?
Well, for me, the number two thing I need from this series to be successful for me is it needs atmosphere. Like it needs that atmosphere that makes it feel like 78. Because if there's one thing the one thing for me that separates the good Halloween movies from the bad Halloween movies is the atmosphere. And I mean all of it. From Michael literally being the shadows to the environment, the look of the community, all of those things that make Halloween stand out in the good movies is what it needs. I don't need, I don't care how crazy can we make the kills? How crazy can we get away with making the kill? I don't need that, because it's not about the brutality of the murders. If I want to watch torture porn, there are plenty of movie series that provide that, and Halloween should not be one of them. But I need that atmosphere, I need to be questioning myself every time a character walks into the shadows, every time you see the darkness and walking around a corner. Is Michael going to be there? Is this, something about to happen? And that's what separates the good movies from the bad movies, is that you never know when it's about to happen because Michael is always present in the shadows, even when he's not there. That's what makes, 78 special, and the good movies that come after that is capturing the atmosphere that Michael is the boogeyman while keeping him sort of more grounded and down to earth. That's something this series needs to capture for me to be successful. And the more they venture away from that, the less likely this is to hit home for me.
So I like, harkening back to the original, but David Gordon Green's movies did that a little bit, maybe not as much as people wanted. But I don't think this can just be like a nostalgia act. I don't think it can be let's, go back and rehash 78 again. To me, they got to bring something new to the table. Say what you want about Rob Zombie's film, specifically the second one, but at the end of the day, at least Rob Zombie tried to go out there and do something different. I got to give him all the credit in the world for that. It didn't land. Fan base hated it, but it was something different. I like, yeah, nostalgia's great. You need a little bit of that for sure. It sells, but do something new to put your own stamp on it. And I think that's important. But like Johnny said, I think also having the right mood and the right atmosphere and having a bit of that 78 feel in it would be good. Personally, I'd love if the whole thing felt like Seven. You know, give me that. But anyways, um Troy says you and McGregor would make a good Dr. Loomis. I think he would too. I think the only problem with that is he already went and played Danny in Doctor Sleep. So it's hard to keep casting the same guy as, different big time horror movie characters, in my opinion. Matt, what do you got first? What's your number two? You're muted,
Helps
sir.
to not be muted.
Yeah, I was such a major fan of the flashback scene as in Halloween Kills, and I think I'm be surprised if not all of us were. And it's like they did they kind of whetted our appetite. Like, okay, we're finally going back to something. Not Granny was telling the story of how he got arrested, but still. And you say what you want, David Gordon Green nailed the flashback scene. You question a lot of things about a lot of the trilogy, but he nailed that. And I'm kind of with Johnny's like that. The atmosphere. What's it going to look like? Is it going to hit? Are these actors straining to play a role that they really weren't meant? Yeah, I mean it's the atmosphere and how it feels, and I think that's what I'm looking forward. I want to feel it, not just like if I want to just see a whole bunch of people get killed, I can turn on a Friday 13th movie quicker than anything. I want selective kills. I want kills that have a meaning. And I think that would go a long way. So it's like the mood and the, and the more the atmosphere. Now I can, the mood doesn't mean but so much, but the atmosphere. I want to make it sure it looks good. It looks believable, because if it's not, all of us are going to pick up on it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. My third is a bit of a picky one, but the way it's shot. I think the way it's shot is important. I think you need to bring something unique to the table. I think you need to do something different. I don't think it needs to be what David Gordon Green's trilogy was, but you better be willing to do something really good. And yes, it should feel like Halloween. There are Halloween movies where it doesn't feel like it's Halloween. That's important for me. Make it feel like Halloween and make sure the cinematography in it is fantastic, because you need something outside of Michael to sell the series on. Randy?
So, I mean, I'll kind of piggyback off that a little bit in a sense, but it's going to be a little different. For me, what we have to have is like, it's music, it's the score, it's the paying homage to Carpenter, but also trying to create something unique for the series that still feels like Halloween, but also gives you just adds to that tension, and or in the down moments where it just, it takes you completely, where it's like, okay, you're relaxed, you're calm, and then building up to something more tense. I think that's so very important to help with the overall feel of it being Halloween, but also trying to still separate itself from the movies to a degree. And I feel like one of the best things they can do is just when they do music, whether it bring in someone like Bear McCreary or somebody like that, just to give you something different, but still have the chops to make you feel something. and still feel like Halloween. And that's so very, to me, that's always been very important with any show I watch, is making sure the score is just top notch.
Johnny, final one.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Randy said. The third item that was on my list was the soundtrack. You know, it plays such an important part and is often one of the most overlooked in a lot of projects. You know, it ties in so closely with everything I said on my second point about the atmospheres, is the music as well. It needs to capture the moments musically, and not just, you know, be a mishmash of random weird thrown together music, be that licensed or original stuff. It needs to stand out. It needs to work within the moment and not work against it, as we so often see. And it's a hugely important part of the success of Halloween, is how intertwined the soundtrack is with the atmosphere, with the story, with the acting, with everything. It makes a very complete package, and a TV series needs that just as much, if not more.
So whether this lands or not, and we have a. It's funny, as we've been on air. There's a interesting Halloween TV series news or TV series rumor that's come up that one of our followers has sent me. But and I'll recap it. I don't think it's accurate, but I will touch on it here after Matt goes. But as far as I know, John Carpenter and company were going to be back to do the music again, like they did from the David Gordon Green trilogy. My caveat to that is it cannot sound like the David Gordon Green trilogy. You got to do something different, and I do think they're capable of doing that. Matt, last point. We caught
I
Matt mid
think,
bite.
yeah. Um, I think, I mean, I'm with y'all pretty much the same. I mean, I didn't really much appear, but yeah, the music, it's it's everything. I mean, what was this one thing Carpenter said back from the original? He showed the movie to an exec, and they're like, "This movie isn't scary. You put that music in it, oh, it changes everything." And how it's presented, and this is going to change everything, because we've never seen a TV show before that from Halloween, and this we can't. I mean, I don't. If Carpenter is truly going to be a part of it, we're not going to get generic. We're going to get something pretty cool. Because I mean, there was some of the music from Halloween, the trilogy that he came up with, I really liked. Um, but I grew up around like classical sounding strings, keyboards, um, organs and stuff. So I kind of have an ear, I would say, probably more than most people when it comes to like that kind of sound. And he did like, I mean, he used it fairly well in some scenes in the Halloween, the new Dave Gordon Green trilogy. And I trust that if he's doing it, he'll nail it. What we want and what we want to hear and how it's presented. But yeah, music could be everything, because it can be you do you want to see somebody get killed and have that music, that pounding music or something that's gonna like it's not scare you, but bring you into some form of suspense.
Yeah, I love a score from the David
Right.
Gordon Green trilogy. I think all three of them are really good. Even Halloween Ends. But I don't think you can come back with that score. Nor do I think John Carpenter is going to be like, well, let me just do the same thing again.
No, he
That's
won't.
not how he works. So it'll be something different if it is him doing it. Um, we're going to delay our top horror movies from 1998 to next week. because we need to wrap this part of the show up and cover this rumor that was sent to me from a friend of mine. And the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because some of the information lines up with what Jay was telling us earlier. Certainly hope this is not where Jay's getting it from, though. But this is essentially what it goes on to say. Halloween TV series news update. We're thrilled to share that the upcoming Halloween TV series will be taking us back to the 1978 movie from the original franchise. Well, that's not news. This time, Laurie won't be returning, and the show is set to release in the fall of 2025. So that's the second time in one night that we're hearing this potentially from two different places. Again, I did a quick check. I also sent out a message I've not heard back yet. If I do during the show, then I'll share what I hear if I'm allowed to. Don't get your hopes up for 2025, guys. Even if they have been working on this thing and plugging away with it all year, that's still a very, very quick turnaround in terms of development. It's not Rob Zombie development of 2 and 3/4 months, but it's still a really quick turnaround. I want the extra development time so it's done right.
I mean, real quick, let me ask you. I mean, maybe they have been developing. We just don't know. And I mean,
Well, that's
I know
exactly
you've
it,
had this
but
the
they can only
source,
have developed for the last year. To me,
but you
that's not a
can't.
lot of time.
Is it fair to say? Let's say they say, okay, we're going to start shooting in January, and to get some episodes going. You're on mute.
I'm not talking.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I wasn't talking.
Oh,
I was
I was looking at the wrong screen. I got the one screen up, and then I got two, so I'm looking at the other one. But yeah, I didn't. I just feel like if they start, if they're actually doing the grunt work right now, and then setting it up to like maybe okay, we're going to start shooting in January. I mean, let's say it takes 3 weeks to shoot an episode. I mean, in January, you can't tell me that they couldn't have it ready to go in fall of 2025.
No, I'm 100% not saying that. They 100% could do that. What I'm saying is, I want this to be a high quality series that is gone through a proper development cycle that goes through many phases of script rewrites so that when they release the product, it doesn't appeal just to the four of us, but it appeals to the general audience too. If you want to have this thing be the groundwork, if you will, to a movie to come up after it, then it needs to be fucking good. It can't be, oh, well, here's this meh Halloween series, and now we're going to do a movie that follows it up. It needs to be good. And even if they have been working on this thing since fall of last year and they're going to shoot in January, for my needs and wants personally, that's too quick. Things take a long time to get going. And in Halloween, when they rush things, it doesn't end very well. Let me go on to read the rest of this, though. Um, uh, there's a surprise character yet to be revealed, and it's going to be a big one. That would seem to allude to Loomis. Additionally, Scream 7 is also in the works and will be released around the same time as the TV series. I don't know if Scream 7 is going to hit 2025. That's another one where I go, at least with what I'm reading from this, is it's that feels more like 2026 to me. But it could hit 2025. We'll see. Uh, Apparently, Deborah Hill is credited as writing the series credits. That would make sense. She did the original movie. She passed on a long time ago. Malaka Cat is producing. That's a given. And they go on to say James Jude Courtney will reprise his role as Michael Myers. I do not believe that is true for a second. I believe that they're either A, going in a new direction. It also depends on where they shoot. They come up here to Canada and shoot it up here. I got news for you. Much like with what happened in Halloween Resurrection, you'll be forced to use someone who's Canadian in the role, um, in terms of being a stunt performer. So, I forget the guy who played Michael in 8. What's his name again? I do know
Aaron Armstrong.
Brad Laurie. Is that it? Um,
Yeah.
so they couldn't even have Chris Duran from H2O return. Wasn't an option. Um, But they go on to say the show is expected to include all the iconic events from the original Halloween, and there's much anticipation around who will play Loomis. Well, they just went and spoiled the earlier part. Anyways, they put something out there today, and a lot of people are picking up on it. It's on Instagram. Could be true, could be false. They could have heard the same thing Jay heard. Aaron Armstrong is a name that I heard that might be coming back. That would make some sense. He's younger than James Jude Courtney, has experience in the role. Did a lot of the heavy duty stunts in the David Gordon Green trilogy that he probably doesn't get credited for properly. We'll see what happens though. The Halloween TV series, it's going to be interesting. I just don't want people to get their hopes up for 2025 because I don't think it's happening. I'll eat some crow if it does. I just want it to be good, even if it means taking an extra year. Let us know in the comment section down below, though, how you feel about the Halloween TV series. We're going to outro Matt now because we're going to be moving on to some Star Wars stuff. Matt, thanks for doing this. We weren't expecting you tonight, man, but it's always a pleasure to see you. And we're going to take about a 1 minute break as we wrap up the Haddonfield Hour and move on to the Beyond Hour, where we're going to be talking the new Star Wars movies, Star Wars news. We got some Lando stuff, some Acolyte stuff. Randy and Johnny are going to provide us more insight on Star Wars Outlaws and how that is going. And then the final topic is going to be who we actually think killed WCW. I just finished I believe Johnny said in our chat, it's a Vice documentary. I know Dwayne Johnson produced on it. That's The Rock, for those of you that don't know. That'll be the last thing we get to. So it's not my source, Jay, just so we're clear. Not mine. Friend of the channel sent that in. I can tell you right now, the people that we use are less sure about the Loomis thing. They know it was on the table, but that there was a real fear of them not doing it right, and it might be more advantageous for them to go with a character that has something to do with Loomis, or just an all new character altogether. So that's where I would go with that stuff. Anyways, that's going to do it for the Haddonfield Hour. We will be back with the Beyond Hour. Join us. We'd love to have you. Like, comment, subscribe, turn all of the notifications on to keep up with all of our content that we have coming here on the channel. If you want to send in a super chat to support the channel, we always encourage it. YouTube is not a cheap thing to do. And we will see you on the flip side, and I'll do some housekeeping in the meantime. Debuting next week is a show years in the making, Supernatural Revisited. Tommy and I are going through the series. To be honest, we're only committed to 5 seasons at this point. Maybe we'll get through 15, but we're looking at the Eric Kripke run, and we're going to have wonderful guests come on, such as Johnny and Randy and Jade at different times, talking about different Supernatural episodes. We have already recorded 4 episodes of this show that are in the bank. We record episodes 5 and 6 on Thursday. I know Johnny's joining us for 5. And then those episodes will come out next week. Not all of them, one of them. So that'll be constant content happening weekly on the channel. It's a series that if you're a horror fan, specifically the earlier seasons, I really think that you should give a shot. Big thanks to our channel sponsors, Backtrack Cinema, Jesse Storytime Spectacular, Ryan from Kaulignation, and Matt, who was just on here. Without them, it'd be really hard to be on here doing the content that we do. So appreciate all of them. And without further ado, though, let's get to the Beyond Hour. All right, we are in the Beyond Hour, which is where we typically cover Star Wars content. You guys will notice a significant background change. Actually, it might not be as significant to you as it shows up for us, as I'm trying to do all this from my phone, which is easier said than done. So let's get to it here. Topics: Star Wars movie talk, Star Wars news, Star Wars Outlaws, and who killed WCW. Let's start with Star Wars movie talk, man. Um, or men, pardon me, not singular. I was talking with a friend of the show, Ian, the other day, and we kind of had a heart to heart about like how sold are we, given on Lucasfilm still seems like they're a bit of a mess with what's going on. How sold are we on the new movies? How excited are you for the new movies? Um, and when I talk new movies, I'm not talking about the potential 6 or 7 movies. I'm specifically focusing in on, I guess, the 4 that we know are in some type of development. Mando and Grogu, which is filming now. The Rey New Jedi Order, New Jedi Academy movie, which may or may not include Finn. The James Mangold movie, if that happens. Let's remember Indy 5 tanked bad. And that's supposed to be the first Jedi. And then Dave Filoni's movie will happen at some point, but the further we get into this, the further it seems to keep getting pushed back. How sold are we on the new movies? Like, Johnny, I did Star Wars Wastelands with you for 4 years. I know how excited we were for The Force Awakens. I'm excited for Mando and Grogu. I'm cautiously optimistic, knowing that Thrawn is going to have a role to play in that and the Filoni movie. But I'm also nowhere remotely close to where I was heading into the prequels. Where do you stand with your excitement level on the new Star Wars movies?
I don't really have one. Um, Mostly because, with the exception of Mandalorian Grogu, which again I hate that title, I don't.
We agree for once.
I don't know that any of those movies are gonna come out. At this point, it's throw a dart at a board. If you hit it, the movie might come out. If you don't, it's never coming out. The only way it's guaranteed is if you hit a bullseye, and that hasn't happened in a long time. So,
I think you're right,
Mandalorian.
man. Like, sorry to cut you off here, but like that Ray movie was supposed to be the first movie. They announced that as the first movie that was going to come out. It keeps getting pushed back. Daisy Ridley keeps saying contradicting things all the time. I am less confident about the by the day of them doing that. I also don't think that movie works necessarily because it's coming off of, 2 very well. I'll be honest. One divisive movie in The Last Jedi and another fucking terrible movie in The Rise of Skywalker. So the want to do something after that, I don't think isn't really there. But the fact that it's set 15 years after The Rise of Skywalker at least allows them to do something a little bit different and allow different characters to be in there that might grab people's interest. But I gotta tell you, you mentioned you're not sure which ones are going to happen. This is what I'll tell you. I named 4. I am 100% confident Mando and Grogu is happening. They're definitely full steam ahead with that. And I'm 95% confident Dave Filoni's movie is going to happen because of his position in Lucasfilm. The other 2, I'm 50-50 at best. 50-50 on the Ray movie and maybe like 30-70 on the Mangold movie.
I mean, it's almost simple math. From the time 9 came out to now, based solely on announcements and release windows, we should have had what 4 or 5 movies since then. Like, and these were movies that were announced with release windows, and we've gotten a total of 0. So it's reached a point where, like talking Star Wars in the chat, I pretty much have 0 expectations until I actually see footage, because that's the only guarantee that the movie's actually going to come out. And I think, as sad as it is, I think it's a matter of time before something gets the Batgirl treatment, and it's inevitably going to happen, I think, especially in this day and age, where filming a movie and then scrapping it for a tax write-off is more profitable for the corporate overlords than putting a movie out that isn't going to hit, $1 billion revenue. So I think it's inevitable Star Wars is going to get one of those eventually. I don't know what it's going to be. but I think it's going to happen. And, until we see footage with trailers, with, an actual media push behind it, my response is, that's great. Call me when something happens. Because otherwise, I just don't believe you're going to produce. Because fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And we're at fool you 6 times now. Like, I'd stop
That might be generous
believing.
too.
I stopped believing the new Star Wars movie in production announcements that we were getting every year at either, D23 or San Diego or, any of the other places where these announcements are made, that I just don't care because I don't believe you're going to produce. So I, like you said, Mandalorian and Grogu is going to come out. The Dave Filoni film is going to come out only because they are the sort of linchpin pieces in what has been this Disney Plus Star Wars era, that they have to come out, and they will. I think it's as simple as that. They have to come out, so they will. And like you said, these are Filoni, and he has endeared himself to the corporate overlords and gotten himself in a very good position, which is good for Star Wars. I will say, I think he's good for the position. I think he's good for the fan base and good for the fandom. And since he's moved into that position, it seems as though they've taken much more of a, I don't want to say hands-off approach, but a keep your mouth shut approach, which I greatly approve of. So I think those two are guaranteed. The Rey movie, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm open for a Jedi Academy style movie. I am, even with Rey being the focus of it. Got to be done right. Got to create new, interesting characters, and maybe have a director who's actually done something and not just been successful at documentaries. But I think it's justified to be more skeptical than excited at this point. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 6 times, shame on me. And that's where I feel like they are at this point in time. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's just kind of where I am. And then there's the Sean Levy thing, right? Like, where he has openly talked about doing his thing, and so like whether it gets made or not, who knows? It hasn't even been officially announced. They had a chance to announce it, they did not announce it. But for me, I think there's another problem they have is when you're trying to create new fans, which make no mistake, they are, um, jumping to different movies that have nothing to do with one another, um, is not a good way to get people on board. Believe it or not, people, the general audience was confused with Rogue One. Rogue One, there was people that didn't understand why Jyn Erso was the main character because they jumped after The Force Awakens to a movie that had nothing to do with it. And some people might be like, well, Marvel. Marvel builds into the same thing, and to a lesser extent, DC was doing that. Unless all these movies connect in some way, I think it's a very, very unwise move to do a bunch of standalone movies. I do not think that formula works. Randy, where are you at with all this?
I mean, ultimately, I'm pretty confident 2 of the 4 movies that we know about are definitely gonna get released. Like you guys said, Filoni being positioned where he is gives him easily the inside track to make sure that these movies get released. As for the other 2, if they get released, awesome. If not, I mean, it's a bummer, but what are you going to do? I mean, if you think about all the times that they've said so and so is doing a Star Wars movie, and it's just like, all right, cool, and you're just like, shit, it's not going to happen. Why? Because we're 7 years into a movie being announced and nothing's come of it. But it's not to say that and I know it's not exactly perfect, but to some detriment, so to speak. Uh, you could sit there and be like, well, if you could always get the Disney Plus treatment, and that's what we ended up getting with Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. Both of them, those movies were announced. They were going to be like, we're going to make them, and they turned into TV series instead. Not that I hated them, I did not, but it's just the idea that it's been so long since we've had a movie. It's been so long since we've had a reason to go back to theaters and really enjoy ourselves and just absolutely have that excitement level that we've had with some previous Star Wars movies growing up, that it makes it really difficult to get your excitement level up at so much. I mean, knowing that we're getting Mandalorian Grogu, uh, I can't wait because I hope to get to be one of those people that gets to be in one of those like adult only theaters where it's 21 and up and they serve food and booze and we have just every like-minded person in there who loves Star Wars is going to be there and sharing in the experience of what this movie is going to be. I miss that. I miss that very much. And it's very important that we get at least, we get these movies just for the sole fact of a way of just escaping, a way of going out, a way of just kind of letting go. It's great that we get the TV series and we can sit at home and not have to worry about spending money minus, the subscription fees. But we're all old enough that we grew up on going out to the movies. We grew up on having that expectation. We grew up on the excitement of just seeing that first trailer and knowing we're in for a great ride. Granted, some movies more than others were, lived up to the hype, but still, that's why we need this. We need this as fans. Just even if it's just to bring us back together. Not everybody's going to love it. People are going to hate it. It's going to be divisive, whatever. But the fact that as a fandom, we can all be together and come to and actually enjoy Star Wars the way it's meant to be enjoyed. Because George Lucas never meant for any of this to be on just TV, the small screen. It was all meant to be big screen, epic events. And at least we know we got two of those potentials coming up. And whether the other two or three or however many they decide to announce gets made, I'm all for it. Will they suck? It's possible, but it's the idea of just going out and having that experience, and that's why I'm hyped for Mandalorian Grogu. That's why I'm hyped for a Filoni's movie, because it's getting to share that experience with people that love Star Wars as much as you do.
Yeah, I wish I could sit here and say that I'm excited to take my kids to see a Star Wars movie. I'm always excited for that. And I think, even though I hate the title Mandalorian Grogu, the fact that Baby Yoda is going to be in the movie is going to make it more, I guess, watchable for my little ones. That being said, I'm a little confident in that movie, knowing that it's the first of two and that it really is the first movie before the Filoni movie. And then if they go well, from what I understand, if the first one goes well, then they'll greenlight the third one. And if not, then they'll stop it at the Filoni movie. So we'll see what happens there. I don't think it's going to be a traditional trilogy of sorts, is what I would say. But I'm going to step away for a moment here. We're going to shift gears and move to topic 3 and then come back to topic 2. And I just want you two to geek out with one another for about 10 minutes here about Star Wars Outlaws and your experience playing it. Randy, I'll let you lead off. Johnny, you follow it up. You're both doing playthroughs right now. Try to not spoil anything for one another or the audience in terms of events in the games. Already had social media spoil a big thing for me. Um, but yeah, talk to us about Star Wars Outlaws, and now that you've played into it more, is it worth the price to get it?
So, I mean, I've taken a little bit of a break only because I just didn't want to get burnt out on it. I think I've probably put in a good 12 plus hours into it, but I'm also that type of person that goes exploring and tries to find every little thing. So, story wise, I'm not that far in. I'm still on the first planet, but I've had a blast with it. I think it's, I don't know about you, Johnny, but I like the idea of the open world concept and getting to go, kind of have a almost kind of a GTA feel to it in some respects sometimes. But just the idea of being able to explore freely. Um, I don't know if you've gotten to where you've repaired your ship yet, and actually get to experience some space battles and things like that. But it's really well done. I've really enjoyed that. Um, I do like the stealth aspect of it. I think it's really well done. I like having the option to go in guns blazing if I have to, or just keep it low profile. I've had quite a few missions where I've just kept it low profile, and no one was and the wiser that I was even there. But I know there's a lot of issues. I've seen the different reviews, I've seen the complaints, and at least the director has acknowledged they want to work on it. He wants to improve the game. He wants to keep adding to it, which is good. That needs to happen. I think it's crazy to me to think that there's people that have beaten it already, considering the size of some of these planets. Um, I like the rep system because it makes me feel like it's an MMO in that respect, having different reputations, and you can try to, what I'm trying to do personally is balance them all so that I can at least get into territories. But I know some people are just foregoing specific factions altogether, and that's cool too. I mean, you got to play to your strengths. You got to play the way you want to play, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about this game is you don't have to approach every single challenge the same way. You can do it in so many different ways that it adds to the experience. Plus, the story's been pretty good, and the voice acting's been really good too. I'll give them credit. They've done a really good job with this so far. But other than that, yeah, since I've only been on the first planet, still it does make it a little bit difficult to kind of open up about certain things like being able to go like Tatooine and things like that. Because I know at some point you deal with the Huts, but yeah, what's your experience been like so far?
Well, right now I'm not nearly as far as you. I'm not just at the point where we moved the ship to Junta's point or whatever.
Okay.
So I'm still fairly early in it, and I've been enjoying it. There's parts of the game that I'm really enjoying. There's parts of the games that I absolutely hate every time they happen, and of course that's the override mechanic. I hate the rhythm mechanic that's based on. Like I don't like it. It feels far too gimmicky at points. Like sometimes feels unnecessarily hard with some of those rhythms that it can pump out for you. Like it just, it drives me up the wall sometimes where you feel like you're right on time, you're hitting the beat perfectly, and then it's like, no, you missed it. Like, thanks. That's so helpful. Like it provides almost no feedback, which annoys me. And that's the only part of the game so far that I've been like, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And yet I have to keep doing it over and over and over. I hate it. But outside of that, I like the stealth element. I like the way things work in that regard. And like you said, I do like that sometimes you can't, like if your stealth fails, that's not the end of it. You can still, you can blast your way out of it. Some of those, it just, especially if you're in like a point where you're trying to get behind a shielded like a force shield, you have to take the power out for that. Sometimes if you don't keep the stealth until you get the shield down, it feels unnecessarily difficult. Like trying to fight and figure out where the shield generators are to turn the power off is just unnecessarily hard, it feels like, because of the never ending waves of enemies. You know, it feels like there are more people in one hideout than there are on the entire planet sometimes. And that gets annoying when you're trying to, you know, okay, where does this power line lead? Where's the shield generator? How do I get to it? And you just have a never ending wave of enemies coming at you while you're doing that. Makes that very hard. Which I don't mind so much because it does help with, you know, the immersiveness of it, is that they would be heavily guarded things. So that's not as it is annoying when it's like a mandatory quest and you know you get caught, you get kicked out, and you have to do it all over. It just sometimes that rides on my nerves. Like there was a couple missions that I've done so far that if you'd been watching on Twitch, you would have been watching me do and fail at the same thing for like 40 minutes because, you know, an enemy would take like I would spend my time, find a spot where I can watch the enemies, map their routes, figure out where they're going, just for when I finally make my move, for an enemy to randomly go off path. Like, that has definitely happened more times than I have liked. Like, and, you know, it's... Some of those are very difficult and get on my nerves at times. Like I just did the quest where you have to blow up the illegal pike thing in the very southeast of the
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And that mission just kept driving me up the wall. I just, you know, you'd open a door and there's suddenly an enemy there that's never been there before, and it's like, surprise, motherfucker! Like, no, wait, why are you here? You've never been here before. It's just, you know, you get enemies moving out in random paths. Sometimes it just gets annoying, like that. And then you get sent back so far that you have to do the whole thing over again. That was a loop I was stuck in for like 40 minutes, but I'm enjoying, you know, the adventure. The exploration has been fun. Learning about different side quests you can do as you're going along has been fun. Like, I've gotten, you know, 2 vaults that are, you know, have the keys hidden. So I've been trying to find those keys to unlock those vaults to get stuff that's inside them because, you know, unlike you who's trying to balance everybody, I'm trying to balance myself in the how can I maximize my profit without everyone trying to kill me on sight.
That's kind of what I've been doing that to some degree as well. But granted, I'm maxed out with the pike right now. But I'm still like in good standing with the huts and Crimson Dawn, just because you get so many different quests and side missions and things that you can do. And there's stuff that you can hack out of computers that you can choose who to give it to raise your faction with them too. There's so many ways to just get your stuff back that it's the only faction that I've so far seen that you can't do anything with is the Empire, which is fine by me. I don't mind blasting imps. That's fine. Yep. I actually did that with I just kind of randomly was like, oh, look, here's an Imperial installment. Let's see if I can sneak in. I snuck in and eventually they caught me and I was like, well, I guess there's only one thing to do. Is I started blasting my way out of there. Next thing I know, I've got death troopers coming after me.
I got to that point too once. Without doing that though, I just happened to kind of like you know when you're just driving around on the map, and you'll see the POS pop up with the question mark. You'll be like, "Hey, I wonder what this is," and you drive towards it, and it's Imperial installment number 8675309. Like, oh no, this is bad, and you're immediately like, okay, nope, you shouldn't be here. Here's an immediate 2-star. We're hunting you, and then that you know, you shoot a few of them, and suddenly it's like 4 stars, and you're like, wait a minute, how did this happen? This is escalating far too quickly. So you end up just hiding in a canyon where they can't see you, waiting for it to go away and them to stop bleeding, which I'll admit takes far too long for that.
Yeah,
So
the one time it wasn't going to go away. I had to do the event where I took out Death Troopers and then had to hack into their computer and I'd get them off my case. Like, so, I mean, I got an achievement for it because I did that, but it's just the idea that I had to pretty much fight them, and your little puny gun doesn't do anything to Death Troopers. You have to find some other way of taking care of them, and even your little partner in crime can't do anything. So it's Death Troopers are definitely the one thing you don't want to have to deal with, but. And I'm sure that every faction has someone like that. That if you get them too pissed off at you,
so.
But that's half the fun of it, right? The fact that, I mean, who do you know that's like an Imperial sympathizer? Nobody. So the idea of just blasting away is always fun when it comes to them.
Yep.
Really appreciate the fellas walking us through a Star Wars Outlaws discussion. Just a couple of quick questions here. One, this is not free with Game Pass, correct?
Correct.
Had my hopes up. And that's what kind of scares me away from getting it. Like, I have an opportunity to get it here even later this week, but it's time, right? Like, it's such a big game. I'm dying to know the story, so like I'm already tempted to watch a cutscene movie, but it would take me forever to play through this game with the lack of free time to be able to do it in, right? So like, yeah, I could stream myself playing it, and that would be fun too. But like, and I prefer big games. By the way, I'm not asking for the game to be shorter. It's a big ticket to pay when you think it could take you several months to beat the game. And I mean that's all in the user. That's my problem. That's no one else's problem. But it definitely has me on the fence of, do I get this or do I wait to see if this thing goes on sale a little bit down the road and spend less money on it? And can I avoid spoilers? I already couldn't avoid a significant one while I wasn't even looking for it. But yeah, also, East to West asks, is this a Halloween channel? Well, to be clear, the channel is Haddonfields and Beyond. This is the Beyond portion of the show. We had about 65 minutes of fantastic horror movie talk earlier, where I believe about 50 of it was dominated by Halloween talk. So feel free to check that out. And yeah. But yeah, I don't know, guys. When I was younger, I would have already been diving into this game and playing a ton of it, and you know, I'm not saying I would have beat it, but maybe teenage me. But it's just so hard, right? Because like I can't realistically, I might have 5 hours to play a week, and that is like the high end. So it's like, do you make the $100 commitment and do that, or do you wait and try to get it for half price 6 months from now at some point in time? I honestly don't know. Um, Johnny, you know me. What would you suggest? I'm a Star Wars guy, but honestly, what would you suggest?
I think if it doesn't end up in Game Pass and you can't get it on a sale low enough, I think this is a game you're going to end up YouTube watching. Not because of any other reason than time. I think this is a story that's going to be a lot of back and forthing, which is, something that adds a lot of time unnecessarily, it feels like sometimes. And yeah, I think this is a game you're going to end up watching a cutscene movie of. If you can't get it, cheaply enough, if it doesn't go on sale low enough for you by Boxing Day, you will break down and watch the cutscene video.
Yeah, you're probably right. It doesn't help that you literally can't go anywhere without people posting stuff on social media, and people could say, well, don't go on social media. Well, guess what? When you run a few YouTube channels, that's literally impossible. You have to go on there, and you can't mute the things because you need access to those things. So, um, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Randy,
I will say it does
yeah,
have a fast travel system, so and I find myself using that a lot more than I did before, just because sometimes I'm just tired. I want to get a quest done, and I'm just like, all right, time to fast travel back. But I will say the speeder is kind of cool. You can upgrade it, customize it. Same with the ship. Also, you can unlock different people to learn skills from, which is really is a lot of fun. Um, so, I mean, I say it to me personally, I say it's worth getting, but for, again, for you, yeah, if you don't have a lot of time, your time could be spent elsewhere gaming. It's something that at least, if you put a few hours in, you're happy with. This is something that, this is in terms of grand scope, I'm going to say probably on par with something like GTA in terms of just like the size like of the maps and you got multiple planets to go through. It's not like it's just this first one or Canto Bight or anything like that. We're talking multiple planets. So that's something to think about.
yeah. I mean, to give an example, I started a replay of Knights of the Old Republic 2 about 6 weeks ago. I'm 2 hours into it. So, and it's not because I don't want to get to it. It's just, priorities, right? So
Yeah.
it's obviously a new game. You make a little bit more of a priority rather than one that you played 15 years ago. But it's unfortunate because I do think the game should be longer and bigger and more vast and have a immersive experience. And if it's delivering people that, then fantastic. I will say this. If this was a Jedi based game that's not Jedi Survivor, I appreciate Jedi Survivor for what it is, but it's not Knights of the Old Republic. It's not Jedi Academy, in my opinion. Um, I'm probably playing it already. It's to sell on a shooter slash stealth game in the Star Wars universe where I'm not going to get to do my favorite Star Wars thing.
Yeah, I can understand that. Um, but I think that was a hard sell for me too at first, but then just going, you know what? I've played these types of games before, so I'm not against it. But you're right. If it was, full on force using everything and unleashing hell, whether it's Force Unleashed or Jedi Survivor or Jedi Academy or anything like that, that was always more attractive than basically being a scoundrel for the most part.
Well, there you have it. That is our Star Wars Outlaws talk for this morning. I will not be appearing back on cam, by the way. My doggo's not feeling well. I'm doing my best to support him while doing this. The guy's getting old. I don't blame him. Let's move on to some Star Wars news here before we get ready to wrap up. Let's do Lando. Don Glover says that he's working on a Lando movie, not a series. And this is one of those cases where I just kind of roll my eyes and go, whatever. Like, I'm not saying he's lying. I believe he probably is working on a series on his free time. I also believe that it will never see the light of day. Lucasfilm is trying to bring Star Wars movies back in a big way, according to them. And I think doing a Lando movie doesn't do that at all. They wanted to do the whole, solo movie thing where all these movies were going to take place in around the same time. You're going to get a Jabba movie. Kenobi was even going to have some crossover in with it to some extent. And I just, even though it's Donald Glover, I don't think you're ever seeing that. Now, if the tune changes or becomes an animated thing or, they go back to a series, you could sell me on that. You cannot sell me on we're going to get a Lando movie. I just think that time has come and gone. Johnny, over to you.
I mean, I I think the prime window of opportunity is closed, but I think there's still opportunity for this to be a thing and be a good thing. I think that, you know, I think Donald Glover's Hollywood cachet has sort of dropped a lot since Solo came out. You know, he's not quite as high as he was in the zeitgeist as he was when Solo came out, but I don't think that hurts as much. If anything, I think it might help a little because it won't have quite such a lofty expectation attached to it. I think his portrayal of Lando was great. He had the swagger, the presence, the personality, everything that, you know, we've talked a lot about recasting the big three, and I think Donald Glover is sort of the mold for that, in that he fit so well in the shoes he was stepping into that it worked. You know, he wasn't Billy D. Williams, but he was Lando Calrissian. You know, so it worked, and it worked really well, and I think there is room for him to tell stories as that character. Is film the best opportunity for that? I don't know. But him still being Lando and telling stories, however it happens, I'm okay with. I hope that it happens because he was one of my favorite parts of the Solo movie. So, you know, and I'm a huge Donald Glover fan, period. So I would like to see it happen. Movie, TV, I genuinely don't care. I think it's more likely to come out if it is moved to a television product, you know, as a Disney Plus original series, than it is as a movie. But, you know, if he's got the time, the energy, the ideas, he can knock his socks off. He's an extremely creative individual. I think now is better as far as that goes because there is less on his plate than there was, you know, at the height of Solo when they were, you know, producing that and coming out with that, and then the wrap up after that in the last few years. Glover's, you know, his time is a lot more open than it was then, so I'm for it. I'd love to see it happen. Do I think it's gonna happen? No, probably not.
I think you had people believing there. I think you did. I think
I
you and
want
I
it
were
to happen.
starting.
I'll say that. I want to see it. I want it to exist. I think the only chance it has of existing is if they move it to a Disney Plus series. If they continue down the route of a film as a cinematic release, it's not going to happen.
I think that's valid. I honestly do, and it's probably not what some people want to hear, but I just think it's so hard to do a film. I'm not saying it's easy to do a series either. Just ask the Acolyte how well that went at the end. But I look, at the end of the day, asking someone to be a lead in a Star Wars movie is hard enough. But asking someone to write the thing too, it there's so much yellow tape that you have to go through to get any Star Wars project off the ground, which, you know, we didn't have to deal with in the George Lucas days because he owned the damn thing. That I just don't think it's ever happening. You know, you want Donald Glover back as Lando. To me, the best way to do that is if you're set on having the big three in the Filoni movie. I still think it should be through recast and not deep fake and minor roles. Is have him come back as Lando in the Filoni movie. You know, as Dustin said or Travis said in the chat. You know, he's basically Billy D age now. Why not? I was fine with him as Lando. That's a perfect way for him to come back. Randy?
So, you know, I'm a Johnny. I would love to see this happen. And you bring up actually a really good point. If we're going to bring the big three back, or just originals back, so to speak, in the Filoni movie, this is a perfect opportunity to put Donald Glover back in as Lando and get people familiar with him again as the character, so that when he's like, yes, I'm making a series, or we're going the animated route, or we're going to try to make a film with it, at least there'll be some recency bias, so that people can be like, you know what, he did a really good job as Lando. I would sit there and see that, or I would go pay to see that. So, bringing, if that happens, I can very much see that being the jumping off point, because there are so many tales to tell with Lando that, just the regular average Joe Star Wars fan who doesn't read all the books or the comics or play all the video games or anything like that, this would be just a whole new set of stories for them to just kind of fall in love with the character, and maybe even get them to the point of where they start to go and pick up the books and want to and get curious and want have that more information on Lando. So I don't think it's going to be a movie if it happens. I will say that we've seen what happens with Star Wars movies that get announced. Like I said, Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi are two perfect examples of, hey, we're making a movie, and it turned into 6-episode miniseries, I think, or was Book of Boba Fett was at 8, and then Kenobi was 6.
Book of Boba Fett was 7. Kenobi was
7.
6. Kenobi was originally supposed to be a movie trilogy.
So we see how that goes, and we know that Ewan McGregor would love nothing more than to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again, but unfortunately, I think that ship has sailed, which is a bummer, because I would love to see him back again. But yeah, that's, like I said, with Lando, I think, like you said, your idea is actually really good. Get him in the Filoni movie, make people aware of him as the character, and then let's push out a series so that he has the backing of the Filoni movie to help set him up and set the series up potentially for, maybe at least a couple seasons, to just give us an idea of what Lando has had to go through. And even if you think about it, if you're setting up recasting the original 3, depending on when these Lando stories happen, you could also have them show up as cameos in episodes to keep them in the forefront as when moving forward. So there's a real opportunity here if they do it right. And I would love nothing more than for them to do it right, just because, these are characters I grew up with, and I would love nothing more than to see more of their stories that we don't get to see because they're just so damn afraid to recast them.
Yeah, it's a problem, right? Like Kathleen Kennedy herself. Well, recasting's a bad idea. We've been there. That's not why Solo didn't work. Not you. Like, it'd be like if Marvel said, you know what, Tobey Maguire was fantastic as Spider-Man, but we can't recast him. I get it. Spider-Man has a mask, so it's a little bit of a difference there. But like, we're not going to recast Peter Parker. We're never using him again. It's just you're shooting yourself in your foot. You absolutely are, and I think it's just a bad road to go down. So hopefully, smarter decisions are made in regards to that stuff the further that we get into it. Let's move on, though. Our final thought of the show. Been watching the Who Killed WCW documentary. Finally finished it. It's basically 4 45-minute episodes. Kevin Nash is either high or drunk the entire time during it. It's very, very noticeable. Feel bad for that guy, too. I know he says a lot of shit, but if you know his personal life and what he's gone through in the last, I think, year or so, it's not good at all. And even further than that, if you go back to losing Scott as well, it's not great. So he doesn't come across very good in it, but I find myself really enjoying it. And it really just made me ask the question and ask everybody else at the end. Who do you think, if you could only pin it on one person or corporation or whatever, if you got to charge someone with the crime, who do you think killed WCW? Handing it over to my wrestling expert buddy, Johnny. In your mind, if you can only pinpoint one, who are you putting the fault at?
Very simply, the
And
person
why?
I've always blamed, Jamie Kellner. Jamie Kellner killed WCW because no matter the bad decisions made before that, the money lost before that, the bad booking decisions before that, WCW could have survived if Jamie Kellner had let them survive by giving the time slots away. And let's be honest, TNT went 20 plus years, almost 20 years, wanting those ratings back from anything that was an NBA. And just because he wanted to, wrestling.
Can you let the audience know who Jamie Kellner is? I know because I just watched the documentary. But
Jamie Kellner was, once the Time Warner, AOL Time Warner merger was complete, he was named president of, I believe, the whole thing. At the very least, Turner Media, Turner Sports. He was in control of TNT and TBS and all of that corporate side. And he canceled WCW. That's it. You know, he was the chairman CEO of Turner Broadcasting. He killed WCW by canceling the shows. If the time slots were there, they had a deal. Eric
which
and
is one
Fusion
thing I didn't know.
for a
I
lot more money than they got.
well, it's not hard to. What was it? They got $4 million or something
No,
like that.
it was 2.5.
2.5.
It was ridiculous. There was the Fusion Media offer was for $75 million, including I believe it was a minimum 2-year commitment to television, which would have given them more than enough time to build the company back up, build the roster back up, get them into whatever sort of situation they were going to put themselves into, and it would have been just fine. And I dare say, probably still be going today. But by canceling the shows, it killed the Fusion deal. It killed all of the other deals that were in place. Like, that's the other thing. It wasn't just Fusion. There was Jerry Jarrett had wrangled up, a $10+ million offer for the company. They ended up selling it for parts. And the video library. That's all they sold for. $2.5 million for the video library. Jamie Kellner killed WCW, period.
Yeah, I didn't know about the deal Bischoff had in place and the Vegas thing that they had that they were going to do for a while, and that was all news to me. So, I hear people say Eric Bischoff killed WCW. I got to be honest, Eric Bischoff comes across pretty good in that documentary. Not saying he doesn't make mistakes, but I will say this, and some people will roll their eyes at it, but like I see a shit ton of parallels between WCW and AEW. The difference is all the people that think AEW is going to go to business. Guess what? AEW has TV guaranteed and about to have 3 more years locked up with an option for a fourth. When you lose TV, even when would this be? 2001?
Yep.
Even
April
back
2001
then,
was when the show was canceled.
when you lose TV, not 1 but 2 time slots, your product goes from being worth a decent bit to almost nothing. And it just seemed like that guy came in not liking wrestling from the get-go and squashed it. People point at Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff and Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan, and I think they all wear blame. I'm not a Russo guy by any means, but also, you watch that documentary and you almost feel a little bad for some of the shit the guy went through. I strongly recommend everybody check it out. It's definitely worth watching. But yeah, I mean, a week ago I didn't know who Jamie Kellner is or was. I think he's still alive.
Yep.
But I agree with you, man. You watch that
No,
documentary.
he actually didn't. He passed away
Oh,
a
did he?
couple months ago in June.
No,
June of
well,
this year.
that being said, rest in peace and thoughts with his family and friends. But yeah, he came in there on a mission to basically squash it, and squash it he did. Randy, I know you haven't seen the documentary, but do you have your own take on who killed WCW?
Well, it sounds like if I had seen a documentary, I would be agreeing with you two. Obviously, I could sit there and, from the stance of just, being someone who watched the product and seeing how it went downhill, I mean, I could easily blame, Hulk Hogan for his wrestling politics, or I could blame Vince Russo and some of those god awful storylines he put out there. Uh, but also, it's one of those things where you have to look at as a whole. Sometimes you get too big too fast, and somehow, some way, something happens and you get the rug pulled out from underneath you. And sounds like that's exactly what happened. Is you get the wrong guy in that just doesn't understand what you're about and pulls out that rug, and next thing you know, you're being purchased by Vince McMahon because there's just no money. And that's a shame. It's a real shame, because there was a lot of homegrown talent there that deserved better. And then when they ended up going to WWE, some of them got treated like absolute dog shit, and some of them, got a fair shake. But ultimately, yeah, you have to look at everything leading up to that. And it's one person that just didn't understand wrestling in the end, and that's a shame. That's a shame, especially when you had a moneymaker. I thought we're all in the business of making money. You have a very viable, commodity here that's going to make you money, and you do that to it. What does that say about the guy's business sense? Clearly doesn't have much. But it's a shame. It really is. But you're right. There are some parallels between WCW and AEW, but at this point, you're right. It's because they've got the TV deal. They're locked in. They have a chance to get bigger and get better over the next few years, evolve, become their own thing. And it's just, I mean, I felt like WCW could have done that too, much more than they already had. But I mean, I miss it. I fully admit I miss, Monday Night Nitro and things like that. I miss that stuff. But it's just, like I said, it's a shame. I kind of wish they'd gotten treated better, but what can you do? It is a business after all, and when the money's not there, not much you can do.
That's more of a, I don't want to say inaccurate statement, because the money was there. Money was there, and people look at it and they're like, "Oh, they lost hundreds of millions of dollars in the end. They lost millions of dollars after profiting millions and millions." Do you know that in the history of WCW, not a single pay-per-view profit margin was credited to WCW? Every single pay-per-view was credited to Turner Home Entertainment, because that's how the corporation money worked.
Yeah, they covered a bit of that in the documentary. They also said that when the AOL thing happened, they pinned certain losses that may not have been WCW's on WCW. It definitely became
corporate bookkeeping. That's another unheralded killer of WCW's. Corporate bookkeeping killed WCW because it made the profit margin look much worse than it was. Now, granted, that makes Eric Bischoff look even better when in 96, 97, 98, that company is making $100 million in profit. You then realize that doesn't include the pay-per-view numbers. Suddenly, holy crap, they were making so much more money than anyone thought they were.
Yeah, I know Eric Bischoff has some shit takes, and maybe isn't caught up with what goes on in the world today. But I also don't think the guy gets enough credit for what he did, considering where they were. Not to mention, I never knew about the mandate of, they were on their edgy programming, and WWE or WWF back then got to their edgy programming, and Turner came down and basically said, you need to go back to the way it was. We need it to be more family friendly. And Bischoff ended up losing his job over not going back. He continued to do what he was doing, and they didn't like that, and he got squashed from it. He ended up coming back, mind you, but just
Wait, they had to bring him back. When you go from being a company that is making, north of $50 million in profit every year, having come off of never making a profit prior to Eric, to suddenly you're losing tens of millions of dollars. You can't explain that to the corporate shareholders other than to say, whoops, maybe let's bring back the guy who made us boatloads of money.
even Vince Russo, man, another guy who has a lot of shit takes. I never realized, the Radicals, the Fab Four that left the WWE, that a big part of them leaving was because of them essentially sending Russo home. I also didn't realize it connected so close in time that Benoit was champion like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before showing up on WWE programming, which is wild.
Won the
It
belt, quit the next day.
yeah, that's just incredible. And it, people talk about with movies, corporate interference with sports teams, where if it's a corporate owner, the way they get involved can really fuck things up and things aren't done properly. I would say WCW definitely fell victim to that.
Corporate
Anyhow,
greed. Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our show tonight. We ran about 7 minutes long and started about 15 to 20 minutes too late, but it is what it is. Please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up to date with all of our future content. Please go check out our channel sponsors. Jason Nike at Backtrack Cinema. He's got a ton of good shit coming out. He's going to be on the channel next Monday doing a Halloween watch party with us. I believe he's doing Halloween 1 from 1978 and Halloween 2, but he may only do one of them. We'll see. Jesse's Storytime Spectacular. He just did a fantastic video on the Blair Witch Project. Ryan from Kaulignation and Matt, who was on here earlier. Without them, it'd be a much harder to do what we do. And then for our Legacy of Westeros channel, our House of the Empire show is officially doing a Game of Thrones rewatch.
And winter is coming.
Winter is indeed coming, as last night we did episodes 1, the pilot, aka the second pilot, and the King's Road. Randy, Zach, and I did the pilot. Zach and I did the King's Road. We'll be recording more next week, and I think the goal is to have that be releasing in the first week of October. So check that out on the Legacy of Westeros. And as I mentioned earlier, Supernatural Revisited debuts next week on the channel with the pilot. We record Thursday. Johnny will be joining us as a guest on that. Randy will be joining us on future episodes. It's been going really well so far. Really enjoying what we're doing there. And tune in for our Halloween watch parties we have coming up. Halloween 78, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 5. Johnny's personal favorite, Halloween Resurrection. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Halloween 2018, and Halloween Kills. So join us for those ones. Johnny, where can everybody find you at other than watching Halloween Resurrection nightly?
Here, there, and everywhere. Twitch.com/bros before pros. I'm not sure when we'll be back for part 3, because obviously Thursday nights, which I've usually been going, I'll be a little busy this week. So might just be at a different time shifted slot on Thursday night, if not probably Friday night. But back for part 3 and looking forward to October and be busting out the spooky games.
It's another thing. I still haven't finished my Phantom Menace play along, which I got to do. So it's just so hard, right? It's fucking. Oh, time. If only there were 36 hours in a day. Anyways, American Turkey Burger asks, will you notify us when the Halloween watch along start? We will. Whether YouTube notifies you or not is another story, which is why we highly recommend you join the Legacy of Halloween Facebook group or the Fandom Haven Facebook group, or you follow us on social media at Haddonfield BYND. But I can tell you that we got a doubleheader on Monday, September the 23rd, Halloween 78 and Halloween 2. It'll definitely be at least Michael Bish, myself, and Jason Nike on that. Come out and join us. Have a great time, and we'll notify you on future dates as we line those up. Randy, where can everybody find you at? I think I just named a few of the places.
Yep. Obviously, you can find me here Tuesdays, with you fine gentlemen. But also, I am on X at Giggity Giles, and also our first episode of the new season for the NFL season for the Sports Brew podcast has dropped. We have a feed on Podbean, but you can also probably find it on all your other different podcatchers out there. We drink, give each other shit, and talk sports. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. If you need a good laugh, definitely give us a listen.
Or watch the Titans. That'll give you a laugh too.
Watch the Panthers. That'll give you a laugh.
Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We always encourage donations to the channel via Super Chat if you can. Support us on Patreon for bonus content. Patreon.com/Fandom Haven. And yes, we will see you Monday for Halloween 78 and Halloween 2. Have a great end of your week. Great rest of your weekend. Look out for Johnny's Twitch streams. I know I will be. And we'll see you next time on Haddonfield and beyond.